often winding road called life, have you ever looked at yourself, truly looked, and seen the marks left behind? Not just the lines of age or the occasional blemish, but those deeper, more profound markings, the invisible ones, etched onto your soul by pain, by loss, by regret, by betrayal? Have you ever felt the weight of those emotional scars, those spiritual wounds, and wished, with every fiber of your being, that you could simply erase them, that you could somehow go back, wield a divine eraser, and make the painful past simply disappear, leaving behind a pristine, untouched surface? We crave that clean slate, don't we? That unblemished beginning. We yearn for a life without the reminders of where we've been hurt, where we've failed, where we've been wronged. But today, my beloved, we are going to embark on a profound, 4-hour journey into a truth that may challenge your deepest desires, yet ultimately set your spirit free. It's a truth that runs counter to our human inclination, a truth revealed in the very heart of divine compassion. We are going to explore the powerful, paradoxical, and ultimately beautiful reality that grace doesn't erase scars, it transforms them. It doesn't magically wipe away the evidence of your struggle, the memory of your pain, or the impact of your past. No, grace works a far deeper miracle. It takes what was once a source of shame, a badge of brokenness, a monument to loss, and it reshapes it, imbues it with new meaning, until it becomes a testament to resilience, a beacon of hope, a symbol of redemption. So, settle in, open your hearts and your minds to this transformative understanding, for by the end of our time together, you will see your own scars, and the scars of others, through the radiant lens of God's prevailing grace. Let's begin by acknowledging the reality of scars themselves. Whether physical or emotional, a scar is simply the evidence of a wound that has healed. Think about a physical scar, perhaps from a childhood accident, a serious surgery, or a painful burn. It's a mark, isn't it? A permanent reminder of an injury. It tells a story. It speaks of a moment of trauma, of pain endured, and of the incredible, innate ability of the body to repair itself. We might wish it wasn't there, especially if it's prominent or disfiguring. We might try to hide it, to cover it up, to pretend it doesn't exist. But it's there. It's a part of our history, a part of our physical narrative. Now, consider the deeper, often invisible scars. The scars etched on our souls and spirits. These come from betrayals that pierce our trust, from losses that tear our world apart, from words spoken in anger that cut us to the core. They come from the bitter taste of our own failures, from the weight of our regrets, from the trauma of injustice, or the lingering shame of addiction. These spiritual and emotional scars are far more insidious than any physical mark. They don't just sit on the surface, they can define us, shape our perceptions, color our relationships, and dictate our sense of worth. They can whisper lies in the quiet of the night, telling us we're unworthy, unlovable, permanently damaged. And so, our natural human desire kicks in. We wish these scars would simply disappear. We pray for amnesia, for a blank slate, for the ability to simply forget the pain, the shame, the hurt. We think, if only I could just wipe this away, then I could truly be free. Then I could truly be whole. We see grace, sometimes, as this divine eraser. We imagine that when God's grace touches us, it will magically smooth away every painful memory, every traumatic experience, every regrettable choice. We envision a life where the past simply ceases to exist, a spiritual equivalent of a perfectly photoshopped image, where all the imperfect ions are digitally removed. This misconception is understandable, isn't it? Who wouldn't want to escape the lingering pain? Who wouldn't want to shed the burden of shame that often accompanies our scars? But this expectation, my friends, can actually become a source of profound disappointment. When we don't experience that instant erasure, when the memories still surface, when the emotional triggers still sting, we might begin to doubt grace itself. We might question if we've truly been touched by it. We might think, well, if grace is so powerful, why do I still feel this pain? Why do I still remember that terrible day? Why do I still carry this burden? And in that questioning, we risk missing the deeper, more profound, and utterly miraculous work that grace is truly doing within us. Because here is the liberating truth, etched into the very fabric of divine love: grace doesn't deny the reality of the wound. It doesn't pretend the pain never happened. It doesn't erase the scar. Instead, grace enters into the wound. It ministers to the brokenness not by removing it, but by healing it from the inside out. It doesn't make the memory disappear, but it changes our relationship with that memory. It doesn't make the scar vanish, but it imbues that scar with new meaning, new purpose, and new power. Let me tell you about a man I knew, a dear brother in faith. Let's call him David. David carried deep, invisible scars. His childhood was marked by severe neglect and abandonment. His father left when he was very young, and his mother, battling her own demons, was emotionally absent. He grew up feeling unloved, unwanted, and inherently unworthy. These early experiences left profound scars on his young soul. As he grew older, these scars manifested in his life in destructive ways. He struggled with trust, constantly seeking validation from others, yet always pushing them away when they got too close. He battled with anger, a simmering rage beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the unfairness he had endured. He carried a deep shame about his past, feeling that he was somehow intrinsically flawed. David spent years trying to erase these scars. He tried to forget his past, burying the painful memories under layers of business, superficial relationships, and even unhealthy habits. He tried to prove his worth through relentless striving for success, believing that if he achieved enough, earned enough, or gained enough recognition, he could somehow fill the gaping hole in his heart, somehow make those early scars disappear. But the more he tried to erase them, the more prominent they became, like phantom limbs aching with forgotten pain. The shame persisted, the anger flared, and the loneliness deepened. He was, in essence, trying to heal a spiritual wound with human band-aids, and it simply wasn't working. Then came the day, a pivotal moment in David's life, when he reached the end of his own efforts. He was exhausted, broken, sitting alone in a quiet room, contemplating the wreckage of his life. He saw clearly that all his attempts to erase his scars had failed. In that moment of utter surrender, when he finally admitted he couldn't fix himself, grace stepped in. Not with a burst of light that dissolved his past, but with a quiet, powerful presence that embraced his brokenness. Grace found David not by telling him his past didn't matter, but by showing him that his past didn't have to define his future. Grace didn't erase the memory of abandonment, it surrounded that memory with a profound sense of divine love and acceptance. Grace didn't take away the feeling of unworthiness, it showed him his true worth, not in what he did, but in who he was to God. The transformation was gradual, deep, and utterly profound. David began to understand that his scars were not a mark of his shame, but a testament to his survival. Grace helped him shift his perspective. Instead of seeing the neglect as proof that he was unlovable, he began to see it as a painful crucible through which God's enduring love eventually broke through. His anger, once destructive, began to transform into a passion for justice, a deep empathy for others who suffered similar abandonment. His shame, once crippling, began to melt into humility, allowing him to connect with others on a deeper, more authentic level. Grace didn't remove the scar of his father's absence, but it healed the wound of that abandonment by revealing a heavenly Father who would never leave him nor forsake him. Grace didn't erase the memory of his mother's struggles, but it allowed him to view her with compassion and forgiveness, breaking the chain of bitterness that had bound him. David's scars remained. Oh, yes, they remained. The memories of his past were still there, but the power of those memories had changed. The meaning of those scars had transformed. They were no longer sources of pain that held him captive. Instead, they became springboards for his compassion, wells of understanding for others, and powerful testimonies to the redemptive work of grace. He began to share his story, not to dwell on his pain, but to offer hope to others who felt similarly scarred and abandoned. His past, once a burden he tried to hide, became a powerful tool for ministry, a living example of how grace can take the deepest wounds and turn them into pathways for healing for others. So, how exactly does grace work this magnificent transformation? How does it take something as raw and permanent as a scar and imbue it with new life? Firstly, grace shifts our perspective. It doesn't erase the event, but it changes how we see the event and its impact. It allows us to view our scars not as evidence of brokenness, but as evidence of resilience. It helps us understand that while the wound was painful, we survived. We endured, and through that endurance, a strength was forged that we might never have discovered otherwise. The scar becomes a story, a narrative of triumph over tribulation, not shame over failure. Secondly, grace empowers forgiveness. This is crucial. We often carry scars because we haven't truly forgiven either ourselves or those who have wounded us. Grace provides the power to release the bitterness, the resentment, the self-blame that keeps the wound festering. It doesn't mean condoning the wrong or forgetting the pain, but it means choosing to let go of the power it holds over our present and future. Forgiveness, fueled by grace, is a powerful act of transformation, turning the poison of unforgiveness into the balm of peace. The scar might still be there, but it no longer throbs with unhealed anger or resentment. Thirdly, grace reveals purpose in our pain. This is perhaps the most profound transformation. Many of us ask, why did this happen to me? Grace doesn't always give us all the answers to the why, but it does help us find purpose in the experience. Our transformed scars become a unique qualification to minister to others who share similar wounds. Imagine David, who felt the sting of abandonment, now sitting with a young person who feels forgotten. His scar allows him to connect on a level that words alone never could. He can say, "I know exactly how you feel, because I've been there." His past pain, now transformed by grace, becomes a bridge of empathy, a conduit for healing. Your deepest wounds, touched by grace, can become your greatest ministry. Fourthly, grace cultivates profound resilience and gratitude. The scar, once a reminder of weakness, becomes a symbol of survival. It testifies not only to the fact that we were wounded, but that we were healed. It reminds us of God's faithfulness in bringing us through the fire, through the flood, through the deepest valleys. This isn't just about enduring, it's about thriving because of what we've been through, not in spite of it. And from that resilience springs a deep, abiding gratitude, gratitude for the healing, gratitude for the strength gained, gratitude for the grace that never let go. Fifthly, grace deepens our empathy. When we've experienced deep pain and witnessed the transformative power of grace in our own lives, our hearts are open to the suffering of others. Our transformed scars allow us to approach others with compassion instead of judgment, with understanding instead of criticism. We become more patient, more kind, more willing to extend the same grace we have received to those around us. Our wounds, touched by grace, become conduits for love. Let's consider different types of scars and how grace works in each. There are the scars of regret, the marks left by our own poor choices, our own sins, our own failures. We carry the burden of what if and if only. Grace doesn't erase the memory of the mistake, but it transforms the shame into humility, the guilt into repentance, and a desire for change. It reminds us that while we may have messed up, we are not defined by our worst moments, but by God's unchanging love and His willingness to forgive. The scar becomes a reminder of a lesson learned, a testament to God's restorative power, and a warning to avoid those paths again. It's a mark of having been broken and beautifully put back together. Then there are the scars of injustice, the wounds inflicted upon us by others, by betrayal, abuse, or systemic wrongs. These are perhaps the hardest to accept, as they feel undeserved. Grace doesn't erase the memory of the harm done, but it empowers us to process the anger, to release the bitterness, and to ultimately extend forgiveness to those who wrong us. This forgiveness is not for their sake alone, but for our own freedom. The scar becomes a symbol of survival, a monument to the fact that evil did not win, and a testimony to the power of God to bring beauty from ashes. It allows us to advocate for others, to be a voice for justice, precisely because we have known injustice. Consider the scars of profound loss and grief. The passing of a loved one, the shattering of a dream, the unexpected end of a significant chapter. These are wounds that never fully close, leaving a permanent ache in our hearts. Grace doesn't erase the pain of absence, it doesn't bring back what was lost, but it offers comfort in the mourning, peace in the remembrance, and hope in the face of despair. It reminds us that love transcends earthly boundaries, and that even in loss, there is a promise of reunion. The scar of grief, transformed by grace, becomes a testament to enduring love, a deeper capacity for compassion, and a quiet strength found in enduring sorrow with faith. And for those who carry the scars of addiction or profound brokenness, the deep gouge left by dependency, by self-destructive behaviors, or by mental anguish, these are often accompanied by immense shame and feelings of being beyond repair. Grace doesn't erase the history of struggle, but it provides the power for deliverance, the strength for recovery, and the relentless, unwavering love that reminds us of our true identity. The scar of addiction, touched by grace, becomes a powerful testimony of liberation, a beacon of hope for others still trapped, and a constant reminder of the daily dependence on God's sustaining hand. It's a mark of miraculous freedom. So, how do we invite this profound transformation into our own lives? How do we allow grace to work its miracle on our deepest scars? Firstly, through acceptance and surrender. This is often the hardest step. It means acknowledging the scar, admitting the wound, and surrendering our futile attempts to erase it. It means saying, yes, this happened. Yes, I carry this mark, and I cannot change it on my own. It is in this surrender that grace finds an open door. Secondly, through honest lament and prayer. We don't have to pretend we're fine. We can bring our pain, our anger, our sorrow, our shame directly to God. He can handle our mess. He welcomes our brokenness. In prayer, we invite grace into the very core of our wound, asking Him to begin the work of healing and transformation. Thirdly, through community and vulnerability. True healing rarely happens in isolation. Sharing our story, our scars, with trusted others, a friend, a family member, a spiritual mentor, a support group, allows the light of grace to shine into hidden places. It breaks the power of shame, which thrives in secrecy. When we share our scars, we often find that others have similar marks, and in that shared humanity, healing begins. Fourthly, through active forgiveness. This is a choice, often a difficult one, that we must make repeatedly. Forgiving those who wounded us, and perhaps even more challenging, forgiving ourselves. Grace empowers this process, enabling us to release the chains of bitterness and self-condemnation. Finally, through serving others. Once grace begins to transform our scars, we are compelled to use our experience for the good of others. Our transformed pain becomes a source of empathy and service. When we reach out a hand to someone suffering with a similar wound, our own healing deepens, and the meaning of our scar becomes vividly clear. It becomes a testament, a tool, a sacred part of our story that points to something greater than ourselves. My friends, understand this profound truth. Grace doesn't promise a life free of pain or a past without scars. That's not the deal. What grace promises, what grace delivers, is a life where your scars, those undeniable marks of your journey, are no longer symbols of shame or ongoing pain, but rather radiant testimonies of God's enduring love, His restorative power, and His unwavering presence in your life. Your scars, once a source of weakness, become a wellspring of strength. Once a reminder of defeat, they become a monument to victory. Once a sign of brokenness, they become evidence of beautiful, divine restoration. Look at your scars, whatever they may be. Look at them not with despair, but with a new understanding, a new hope. These marks are part of your story, yes, but thanks to grace, they are not the end of your story. They are merely chapters, profoundly transformed, that lead to a greater narrative of redemption, purpose, and everlasting love. Embrace your transformed scars, for they are the living, breathing proof that grace truly does prevail, not by erasing the past, but by making it a glorious part of a redeemed future. Let us